Edition of NASCAR DFS Preview. I'm AustYn with the Sports Chief, and we're heading up to New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudon, New Hampshire for the next race. It's the Foxwoods Resort Casino 301. Yeah, got that right. All right, so New Hampshire, for those of you who do not know about the track, it's a mile-long oval, very flat track, relatively zero banking. So it takes like 30-some seconds or upper 20s to get around. You know, it takes a little longer for sure. Braking is very important at this track, so you have to know your braking points. There's not really another track exactly like it. The closest track that you can compare it to would be Phoenix, and NASCAR is actually using the same tire that they used at Phoenix earlier on in the year. So that's one thing that I looked at. That's something that you can look at when you're making your lineup as well. It seems like that is a very important thing. Also, it's a new tire to New Hampshire, so it's not the same one they used last season. Also, passing is pretty tough here. Typically, a top 10 finish means that you started inside the top 20 most of the time. Now, that's not the case always, but of course, with the new NASCAR season that we have this year in 2020, it's we don't have practice. So, like always, I'm looking at past results, past history, performance in the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series, just to see which drivers kind of have a knack for this track. It definitely is a different track, and once you figure it out, you're pretty good here. A lot of drivers have won 3 or 4 races here that are in the field. The winningest, I believe, I'm wanting to say is Kevin Harvick. Yeah, so he's won 4. He's won the last 2. And Harvick's on a burner. Denny Hamlin's on a burner. Denny Hamlin has the best average finish at 9.9, so like 10th. So that's one thing to look at for sure. DraftKings made it pretty tough on us this week. There was a driver that I really wanted, and that made it a little more difficult. So let's just go ahead and see what DraftKings has to offer and kind of break down the drivers and the scoring, kind of like that. So let's just check it out. All right. So starting in 7th, our most expensive driver is Kevin Harvick at 11.6. So we have 5 drivers that are 10K. We've been getting 4 or so we're adding another one. Ryan Blaney starting in 12th at 11.1. Blaney has been performing very well. We had him last week. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 11th at 10.7. Denny Hamlin starting in 2nd at 10.4. And Christopher Bell comes back at us with another high price starting in 35th at 10.1. Now, looking at this, the top tier guys, typically what I do is I normally look at these drivers as my pick to win the race. I don't know for a fact that I'm going to do that this year. Kevin Harvick is going to be picked pretty highly, I believe, and Ryan Blaney, Truex, those 3 guys are going to be picked really highly, and I think Denny Hamlin will even be picked pretty high. His ownership will be relatively high. So I'm hoping that I can get a sneaky pick here. I don't know how sneaky it'll be. But one driver, before I even saw any of the salaries, and I just knew that this was going to happen, there's one driver that really dominates at this track, and that is Christopher Bell. I am going with Christopher Bell, not even thinking twice about it. He's starting in 35th. Well, let me break it down for you the way Bell has performed at this track. So in the Xfinity and Truck Series, he has 4 starts total. 2 in the Trucks, 2 in the Xfinity Series. He's got 3 wins in the 4 starts. And he finished 2nd in the truck race that he didn't win. So Bell is insanely dominant at this track. Now, I know he's in a different ride, but that 95 car that he is in, Matt DiBenedetto qualified 7th here, I believe, or 8th, 7th or 8th, and he finished 5th. This car actually has a track record for being good here. So I love Christopher Bell in that option, just for the simple fact that if I have a race winner, he is my dark horse to win this race, and he might even be my top pick. I think he is that good here. So I'm going with Christopher Bell, and that made it a little difficult in getting salaries here because Denny Hamlin seemed like a no-brainer. He's starting in second. Eric Almirola's on the pole. Hamlin's got the first pit stall. And I think all of those things are very important. You also have 7 sets of tires, and you're running 300 laps, so it's a lot of laps. And if Hamlin leads, 100 and some laps, that's already made it worth it for him, unless he wrecks. So I had to go Christopher Bell. He was my top option, and that chopped into my salary a little bit, but top 10 is highly likely for Bell, and I just love that scenario. That's just a ton of points. And hey, what if he does get up front and leads a ton of laps? That would be even better, and that would just catapult us into the top. So I'm going Christopher Bell. That leaves us with 79.80. Now, my past strategies, which have worked out, we've been on a hot streak here at the Sports Chief, and I'm picking guys that are starting higher than their average finish. So it was pretty tough this week, being that a lot of drivers finish in the top 15 at this track. It's not really a track that people really dominate at. Denny, even though he's got the best average finish, he's won twice here. Three times. But he started since 06, so that's a lot of sample size. It kind of comes and goes with who's dominant here. Eric Jones is always drawing a really great position. Starting in 17th, that leaves a lot of positive EV for him. And let me see here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and break it down through the drivers that are even worth picking. J.J. Yaley actually has been finishing in the top 25, which is pretty crazy, but he's starting way too high. Anyway, Ryan Preece in 30th. Preece is that modified driver style who, they run modifieds at New Hampshire, and up north modifieds are very popular, and that's what he came from. That was his background. And I think Preece can perform well. If you really believe that Preece and that modified background is going to help him get a top 15, go for it. I don't think it's a terrible option. He is really cheap. So if you're wanting to pick more of those top-tier guys, go with Ryan Preece. I don't feel like that's bad. Ty Dillon starting in 25th. His average finish is 19th. I feel rough picking Ty Dillon unless he's starting outside the top 30. Suarez has actually been performing really well as of late. He's getting top 25s every week, and with that 37th spot, that's great. Chris Buescher, starting in 24th, was one that I really considered. His average finish here is like 23rd, I think. So that's not terrible, and he's in the Roush Fenway car. His best finish here is like 15th. So you're looking at best case scenario 15th. Corey LaJoie in 33rd. Also, his family, his dad, Randy LaJoie, has got that Northeastern racing background, so might help a little. Randy LaJoie actually won a race here at New Hampshire. Corey's okay here. He hasn't performed that great. I believe 22nd or 23rd is his best finish. Michael McDowell starting too high. Bubba starting way too high. Can't even consider him. That's way too high for him. And McDowell. McDowell he had a couple top 10 finishes there, but that's too high. So, in all reality, one of my top options for this track, and I'm just going to scroll up here. I was just going to break it down for you, though. Ooh, sorry about that. My best options, to me, I think you cut it off at Jimmy, and a driver I really like going into this week is William Byron. So William Byron ran pretty well last week and led some laps. And I think he's starting to get in a little bit of a groove here. Starting in 16th at a track where his average finish is 13th. He's got a truck win. And remember, I brought up that they're running the same tire that they ran at Phoenix. He got 10th at Phoenix. So, hey, if he can give me a top 10, that's great. I love William Byron at that price. And I think he could contend for the win. I don't think that's out of the question at all. So I really love William Byron in that spot. Also, one driver that I'm looking at is Ryan Newman. So Ryan Newman, track history, his average finish is 13th, which is great. That is amazing. He put this car in the top 10, not top 15, top 10 last year, and the year before that he got a top 10 in the Richard Childress car. So starting in 22nd, I think it's highly likely he gets a top 15. and I'm loving that choice with Ryan Newman. He's won here 3 times. It was his first win. He also has, he loves running the modified races. He used to run some of those years ago. And I think this track just really fits his style. Love Ryan Newman. Hope he can get me a top 15. And I'm just digging the fact that Christopher Bell, I think that's going to give me a lot of cushion to pick some of these, riskier choices. So I feel like this is just a well-balanced lineup. I think you can play it in a cash-in tournament, what I'm going with. So, yeah. Also, a driver that I was really considering going with this week was Ricky Stenhouse. Now, hear me out. Ricky Stenhouse has an average finish of 22nd. When he doesn't wreck, he gets a top 20 finish most of the time. And John Hunter Nemechek, starting in 36th at 7,000, that's a guy, he got a top 5 here in the Xfinity Series, and that's an interesting option as well. But I can't go with Ricky this week. I'm going to fade him. And one driver, let me just scroll up here. I've got a pretty good average salary, so I've got 8,500, and I think I'm going with a more balanced approach. So I'm going to cut it off at Ricky. And I don't know why, but I really think that Kurt Busch is going to perform well. He's starting in 10th spot. He has an average finish here of 16th. So that kind of negates my strategy here. But he did get 6th at Phoenix, and I like going with Kurt Busch at 7,700. That gives me a little bit more money to play with there at 88. So going with Kurt Busch there, which gives us 8,800, and a driver that I really want to go with is Matt DiBenedetto at 19th spot. So like I stated, he finished 5th here last year. He's in the Penske engines. Top 15 seems pretty likely, and I think he's going to be picked a decent amount, and I think he's a driver you kind of have to have in your lineup. Top 10 is pretty likely. I feel like all of my drivers that I pick this week are top 10 likely drivers at New Hampshire. And that gives me $9,400, which I am, crazy pumped about. Now, this lineup, like I stated, was really tough for me. I really wanted to go Denny Hamlin, and I kept trying to stick with Denny Hamlin, and it just wasn't working out for me. So a driver that I'm going with is Kyle Busch. Going with Kyle. He's starting in 5th. He finished 3rd at Phoenix earlier this year. I'm still waiting on that win, and I'm thinking it's coming this week. So Kyle's average finish is 12.6 here. Still doesn't, equate to my average finish strategy. Actually, 3 of my drivers didn't get that, but it's okay. I feel like Kurt is a top 10 driver pretty much every week. He actually has the most top 10s if you look at it right there. He's got the most out of all the drivers that I picked. But yeah, Kyle's got 3 wins here. Kurt's got 3 wins here. Newman's got 3 wins here. Christopher Bell has 3 wins in other series. Byron has won here. DiBenedetto hasn't won, but DiBenedetto is kind of he's in a top 10 car. So looking forward to having that. Hoping that more people pick Eric Jones rather than go the DiBenedetto route, or they go Austin Dillon. Hoping I kind of dodged that. I think Nemechek's going to be highly owned as well. So hopefully I snuck in and got Newman at a really good price. Newman's just really good at this track. Now, I'll kind of walk you through what I was originally thinking about doing, and it was a Bell-Hamlin stack. So I'm thinking Hamlin will probably end up leading more than 100 laps, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, but it's a pretty likely scenario. So if you go Denny, that gives us 7,300, and I still liked going with William Byron, and I probably was going to end up going John Hunter Nemechek and Ryan Newman, and that would give me Kurt Busch, which is fine. I'm just not completely sold on John Hunter Nemechek yet. I just don't know about that. If I went Buescher and Newman, if I went the Roush Fenway route, took out Kurt, I'd have 8,900 to spend, and I could get Eric Jones. That seems like a really good option as well. I don't think it's very likely that. I don't know. I just don't think Buescher will perform that well. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a risky thing, and I think Eric Jones is due for a wreck probably. It seems like Eric either gets a top 10 or he wrecks. So Anyway, I'm going with Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch would be my choice ultimately to win the race. But hey, I don't think you can count Bell out. I'm serious. I think Bell is a boss here. Going Matt DiBenedetto in the 19th spot. Kurt Busch starting in 10th. Ryan Newman starting in. I'm missing somebody. William Byron starting in 16th. Kurt Busch starting in 10th. And Ryan Newman starting in 22nd. Probably can say this is more of a tournament strategy lineup. The one that I had Nemechek on was probably more of a cash game, and the one I had Denny Hamlin in as well. I'm trying to dodge. I'm trying to dodge the Denny Hamlin stack. I think Denny's going to be picked a lot. Denny may perform well, but I'm hoping that hey, Denny has something bad happen. That's what I'm looking for. Trying to keep this streak rolling. I like where all of my guys are starting, and I think all of them will finish higher than where they're starting. So that's my strategy, and it's been working, so let's just keep it going here. Hope that helped you out a little bit. Again, it's really hard to pass here, so I'm hoping that all these guys that are starting in the low 20s, that's a pretty good spot. If they can get a few here and there, that's great. That's great for me. Anyway, if you like what you see here, subscribe to our YouTube channel here, The Sports Chief. Like, dislike, comment, whatever write some comments, whatever you think about this race. We're also on www.thesportschief.com. We are also on Twitter at thesportschief and Instagram as well. So come check us out, see what we're about, and hopefully we're also starting actually some MLB DraftKings stuff. So pretty tough to play MLB for sure. I'm not handling that as much. Garrett's doing that. And we have some AEW, WWE stuff, a little bit of everything. So hope you enjoyed it. Got any questions? Like I said, just comment. And best of luck to you at the Foxwoods Resort Casino 301.